I'm not from a acting background or an arts background, or my father doesn't write poetry, or I went to drama school and I'd seen like 1 or 2 plays my whole life. I didn't know anything about theatre. I didn't know anything about singing. I didn't know sheet music. I used to ask questions at drama school like, so do we need to learn the lyrics for the song, or can we just read it from a sheet? And the other people, they just looked at me like, well, who's this fun boy? So I knew nothing about theatre, film, nothing. My first job, a tally job, was on Shorten Street, and I met Michael Galvin, and he said, I reckon you'd like Stephen Burkoff and Robert De Niro. And I hadn't heard of those guys, and I was in my 20s. So, so I went and looked them up and checked them out, and there's a character called Philip Cotton. He ended up going on a date with Danielle Cormack. Danielle was one of the first actors I worked with. I worked with her again just recently, and we were reminiscing about it. It was a hard case. Yeah, I went on a couple of dates with Alison Raynor, Danielle's character, and my character turned out to be a little bit unbalanced and sort of thought that the relationship was more than it was, and kept stalking her, and then it just got more and more out of control. I ended up getting arrested and shunted off to psychiatric hospital because they found her panties on my clothesline. But the interesting thing was that I knew none of that storyline. I just, you weren't told that that's where it was going to go, and I had no idea. And at the time I didn't care. And I remember watching on telly going, I'm a panty sniffer? Yeah, it was a short film that I wrote that we got Film Commission funding for the fallback. It was something like 90-odd grand, and we made that on 35, and it was the mature sort of progression from initial stages, and I got a Best Actor award for that. I got one festival, and then I got a nomination at our Film Awards for it. I had 2 nominations that year. One for one of the low budget films that Larry made called Hopeless, which was an intriguing experience. It's something that I think I learnt a lot from, and mistakes that I'll never repeat, like using your own clothes. I think, but it's a funny thing, but I'll never ever do it again. Actors talk about it, say I use my own clothes on this, or wardrobe asked me if I could use my shoes. I never ever do that again. I think it's just such a tragic mistake, because they belong to you as your person in your own everyday life, and it's just so wrong and uncomfortable. I don't think actors should ever do it, no matter how low budget or how many mates are working on it. It's like, no. Really deeply embarrassed and horrified watching that premiere, and I just left afterwards. Everybody went and partied and had a huge night, and I just was absolutely mortified about how I looked and how I acted and how my wardrobe was, and I was like, fuck, this is just terrible. It was supposed to be like first feature film, and it was supposed to be interesting, and it was a good script, and it was a good idea, and I like what those guys put together, Sean Malloy and Steve Hickey, and the consequential TV show, and I think it was a good idea. They got poorly served, but so that was a really intriguing experience. I'm a big fan of our awards, and I know a lot of actors don't like them or they shun them, but I think they're important. I think they're really important, and I think the actual awards ceremony and the winning of the awards is really important for our industry, and is an integral business element. And I don't think it's given enough attention and enough kudos, and it's not manipulated and used properly, within, what do you want to call it, the business model or business structure of our industry. I think there should be discourse about it in the industry, because it's important. Turning up to the publicity after winning the Best Actor award for Apron Strings, and nobody knew who anybody was, and some 20-year-old with a clipboard standing there, and I said, well, who's this interview with? Who's the camera belong to? I don't know. I mean, just how fucking stupid is that? Some publicist who's not knowing what the hell, who these people are, what they're for. It's just ridiculous. The business, they'd be fired. I had a friend who was ex-CIB, and I rang him up, and he hooked me up with some blokes, and I went and spent three days with them, or 3 different shifts: the morning, their afternoon, and the twilight shift, or the night shift. and that was great. I really enjoyed it because, you know, going back to what I was talking about before, where did I come from, how did I get involved in the industry. I always wanted to be a cop my whole life, driving around the city with the windows down. You know, why you guys do that? Well, it's because we can hear and smell the crime, and that's what they kind of said. And I thought, oh, right, but it's so true. You know, they said, well, you know, we can hear a window break, or we can smell a fire or something. It sounds really NYPD Blue or something, you know, but it's true. And those sort of details I found riveting. It's interesting when you hire internationals to come and do New Zealand projects. I don't have anything against it because I believe in the borderless kind of community. You know, we play different parts, different actors, different characters, different accents, and there's not a problem. But if we are going to bring international actors here, then they have to be good enough to justify coming here and taking those parts. Because, I mean, now definitely there's some seriously good actors here. Seriously good actors, and you only have to go over to international festivals and watch our actors perform up against these other actors, international actors, and you realise how good we are. And these people have to be as good if they're going to come and take our parts. And I don't believe they were. It was a great part, you know, because the costumes were wonderful, like wool and sort of tweeds and layers and waistcoats and leather holsters and cool guns and knife holsters and, you know, sort of steam coming out of the street and sort of alleyways and, you know, vampires and it was good. The one review called it steampunk, which I thought was a great sort of description for it. She's a very strong, passionate, sort of forceful woman, but she also has a really deep sense of vulnerability, and she showed that a couple of times on very small occasions during the film and during her direction of me. And moments like that are really deeply affecting, and you know that your director is engaged and they are willing to give you a little bit of who they are and what they want, and open themselves up. It's just a tiny, like, little flash of light. It's like, you know, and it sort of really motivates you to do the like, you know, to give a little bit of yourself and open yourself up and become really vulnerable for that moment. And that's what happened on that film a couple of times, and then you got, you know, the resulting couple of little scenes which added up to make a nice character that was quite sort of, you know, broken and, you know, slovenly and kind of horrible, and hopefully that's what moves people. Brando talks a lot about what I like. Azan talks about there are no intrinsically good or bad people. Everybody has motivations and reasons, and so I try to look at characters like that. And I definitely looked at this character like that. I mean, there's no way he's just a mindless, brutal slayer of mankind. You know, there's got to be a reason, and it was in the script. He was a self-harmer. He mutilated himself. He had an incestuous relationship with his mother. He spent a majority of his life up to that point in prison for the murder of his stepfather, who beat him. So there's this massive amount of information that the writers put in there that inform this character and that makes him who he is. And then so you go into that and you find something that is far more interesting than just some brutal killer. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out, the character. I really like it. And, you know, I think I'm allowed to say